We just got our hands on some juicy New World Aeternum content. And today I'm talking about brand new perks that are coming to the game. So if you're brand new to the game, yes, these will be relevant to you. However, if you are returning or a current New World player, these are even more exciting because this will potentially mix up the meta in certain builds, especially when it comes to PvP builds. So there's a total of 6 new perks that are being added to the game. What I'm going to be doing in this video is showcasing each one, explaining what it does and what you have to do to actually get the craft mod to utilize these perks. So the first 3 I'm going to be talking about include the 3 PvP only perks, and then the last half of these perks are relevant to both PvE and PvP content. So let's go ahead and jump into the first brand new perk that's coming to New World Aeternum, which is called Penetrating the Empowered. So again, this is a PvP only perk, and it calls out that critical hits against empowered players will have 10% armor penetration and reduce the duration of empowers on them by 7%. And there is a 1-second reduction cooldown for this, but ultimately it will be extremely helpful because let's face it, nowadays everyone has at least 1 or 2 forms of empower just because of the range of different ways you can actually pick up empower with your skills, abilities, passives, so on and so forth. One thing I do want to call out is that you will see the little exclusive label on the bottom of the perk called proc. Essentially, what this means is that you can only have one perk within these exclusive labels on a specific item. So if this perk has this proc label and so does another perk I want, I can't have both of them on the same item. I have to pick and choose one of them just because that's the way the crafting system works in New World. Next up, we have Thorny Reflection. I am actually very excited about this one because it seems like a lot of builds could utilize this, especially in warlike and even OPR situations. What this perk does is it calls out that taking a critical hit will reflect nature damage back at the target equal to 7% of your weapon damage and reduce the attacker's crit chance by 10% for 3 seconds, which also has a 1-second cooldown. So again, pretty interesting. It could be good for medium and heavy bruisers in some instances. I know that there are existing nature-specific artifacts out there too, and it can all work together to really just amplify and push out as much nature damage as possible. The third and last new PvP perk that is coming to the game is called Empowered Cleave. This one calls out that when you hit 2 players with a single melee attack, you get Empower, increasing the damage of your next 2 hits within 5 seconds by 20%. And there's a 3-second cooldown on this. Now, if you are using a great axe, or even a great hammer in some situations, and you are a bruiser and you're playing some sort of PvP content, chances are most light and heavy attacks that you swing are hitting more than one opponent. Again, it's not in every situation, but most of the time you will be hitting multiple enemies per swing that will be triggering this unique perk. Again, all 3 of these PvP perks are part of this proc exclusive label, so you can't have all 3 on a specific piece of item, but again, you can utilize and kind of mix them within your build to get the most out of them. All 3 of these perks you will be able to get through the new doubloon exchange system that is coming in the Cutlass Keys area. Again, this is a brand new PvP zone that is being added to the game where the chests and taking down players in the area will reward you with a certain amount of doubloons. In order to get one of the crafting items, to craft one of these 3 items, you need to exchange a total of 75 doubloons to the NPC in Cutlass Keys in exchange for the crafting item. Now let's go ahead and jump into the 3 new PvE perks that are coming to the game. The first one is called Disdained Infliction. This one calls out that the potency of outgoing dots are increased by 15%. Hitting a target inflicted by your dots will extend the duration of them by 5% with a 1-second cooldown. And then there's also an additional PvE only portion of this perk that calls out that it also deals an additional 5% base damage against hostiles inflicted with damage over time attacks. So if you are a poison arrow fan, a rain of arrows, maybe a meteor shower fan, or even ice storm, there's a lot of damage over time abilities in this game. A lot of them are either mana focused or built around dexterity builds, but regardless, there is a lot of opportunity with this new perk to incorporate with bleed builds and just damage over time abilities altogether. Next up, we have Hasted Vigor, which calls out that the potency of incoming damage over time effects is reduced by 7% per armor piece with this perk. And taking a hit while inflected with a damage over time will grant you 10% haste for 5 seconds. Honestly, I would not be surprised if medium and heavy bruisers might throw a piece of this on one of their pieces of armor, because that haste could be extremely helpful in certain situations. And let's face it, in every PvP situation, they likely will encounter some form of damage over time abilities, which will proc this ability and actually make it useful in most situations. And now, last but not least, we have the Unimpeded perk that calls out that the potency of slows on you are reduced by 30% as long as you have not been exhausted within the last 10 seconds. This one's not awful. It is compatible specifically with your amulet. And if you were to ask me for my opinion, I would say that there's so many other sought after amulet perks that might perform quite a bit better than this one. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of use for this, but again, maybe depending on your build, it makes sense. And there you go. There are the 6 new perks that are coming to New World Aeternum. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and just enjoy kind of the coverage of some of these new items that are coming to New World Aeternum, be sure to give it a like and a subscribe. It really just helps me out and tells me that it's worth making this type of content. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you guys later.